Hello students, in the third session we'll discuss important diseases caused by protozoan diseases. The first one is Amoebasis. So infection caused by Entamoeba histolytica, a parasitic protozoans called Amoebasis or amoebic dysentery or enteritis. And the amoebasis is caused by Entamoeba histolytica, and this is widespread in India due to poor sanitary conditions. The mode of transmission: the healthy person acquire the infection by ingesting cyst with a food and drinks. The cyst carried out by flies or vectors from the feces of an infected person to food and drinks through contaminated food and water. So they are indirectly via contact with the dirty hands or objects, and houseflies are potential carrier of these protozoans from fecal matter to the healthy person. And you remember, Entamoeba histolytica completes a life cycle in only one host. That's why we call it as a monogenetic type of life cycle. If a pathogen completes life cycle in two hosts, we call it as a digenetic type of life cycle. In Entamoeba histolytica, the cysts are transmitted from fecal matter to the healthy persons. So if cyst is contaminated with the food and water, they enters the healthy person and causes amoebasis or amoebic dysentery. And the cyst, when enters into the small intestine by a stage called tropozoite, the infective stage of Entamoeba histolytica is tropozoites. It infects and inflammates small intestines and feeds on erythrocytes and cell debris, and periodically it forms a rounded cyst which escape from the host feces, and Entamoeba secrete a proteolytic enzymes called cytolysin, which erodes the mucous membrane of the intestine. This may forms a bleeding ulcer that produce dysentery. So tropozoite enters the small intestine, and then it migrates to the large intestine, multiply by binary fission. So soon after multiplication, it invades and erodes intestinal mucosa, invasive infection. Then tropozoites in the large intestine, the cysts are formed and cystation takes place, and these cysts are eliminated out through the exit from the host body through stools. Infection spread through ingestion of cyst from the parasites. Symptoms: small intestine is affected, causes diarrhea. Large intestine is affected, leads to dysentery, that is blood and mucus in the stools. Severe infection causes amoebic dysentery, or sometimes it causes ulcers, inflammation to the colon. So this completes amoebasis. Next we'll move on to the malaria. So malaria is a mosquito-borne infectious disease caused by Plasmodium species. So The causative agents of are Plasmodium, known as malarial parasites. The four species which causes malaria can infect and transmitted by humans. One is Plasmodium vivax. The second one is Plasmodium falciparum. It's the most dangerous one, malignant type of malaria. The third one is Plasmodium malariae, and fourth one is Plasmodium ovulans. The malaria has been very serious disease of tropic and temperate regions for 1,000 years. It is caused by the toxin produced in the human body by the malarial parasites. And you remember, the disease results from multiplication of Plasmodium within the RBCs, within the liver cells and within the RBCs. The mode of transmission. So, the transmitted to humans when an infected female Anopheles mosquito bites a person, injects malarial parasites into the blood. So, this is a life cycle of malarial parasites. When you look at this diagram, this is a mosquito which is infected with a malarial parasites. When bites a healthy person, the malarial parasites are released. So once they are released, they migrate. Okay, that is the infective stage of malarial parasite is sporozoites, and these sporozoites reach the liver through blood. So when it reaches the blood, okay, liver cells, they reproduce by asexual method. And this type of reproduction we call it as a schizogony. There are two types of schizogony takes place. One within the liver cells, that is called exoerythrocytic schizogony, that takes place outside the RBCs. The second one is endoerythrocytic schizogony, that takes place within the red blood cells. So as a result of asexual reproduction, sporozoites multiply by asexual method and produce large number of merozoites. The parasite reproduce asexually in the liver cells, bursting the liver cells and releasing into the blood cells. And these newly released malarial parasites start to infect other liver cells, and some of the malarial parasites or merozoites which infect red blood cells and start multiplying by asexual method. So as a result of this, when they enters into the red blood cells, after multiplication they burst the red blood cells and releases a toxic substance called hemozoin. As a result of this, hemozoin, the malarial symptoms appears in the infected persons. Meanwhile, some of the merozoites, okay, they develops into gametocytes, the sexual stage of this. That means there are two phases takes place in the malarial parasite: asexual phase and sexual phase. Asexual phase takes place in the human beings, whereas sexual phase takes place in the stomach of female Anopheles mosquito. So soon after multiplication in the red blood cells, some of the merozoites, they develops into gametes, and these gametes, okay, they enters the stomach of female Anopheles mosquito. That means when female Anopheles mosquito bites an infected person, some of the gametocytes enters into the stomach of female Anopheles mosquito. Those gametocytes, okay, develops into gamete. So finally, both the male and female gametes fuse together, that results in the formation of diploid zygote. So soon after formation of zygote, they enters into the developmental stage. One of the developmental stage is oocyst. In the oocyst, okay, sporogony takes place. That means The zygote divides mitotically and produces sporozoites, a mature infective stage of sporozoites. They escape from the intestine and they migrate to the salivary gland, mosquito salivary glands. When such mosquito bites a healthy person, the cycle's repeated. Is that clear? So let us see. So when female Anopheles mosquito causes malaria, male do not spread disease. Why? Because male mosquitoes feed on only on plant sap. Female needs nutrients from blood to produce their eggs. That's why it feed on blood. Malaria is caused RBCs. As a result of this, RBCs are destroyed when developing stage of the plasmodium, okay, produces a toxic pigment called hemozoin. Hemozoin, okay, hematophagus. The blood eating process takes place. Look at here. Mosquito injects parasites in the human during meal in the form of sporozoites, infective stage of malarial parasites. The sporozoites are released. They migrate to the liver. So in the liver cells, hepatocytes, that is, undergo asexual reproduction and develops into merozoites by the process called schizogony that takes place outside the red blood cells. That's why it is called exoerythrocytic schizogony. And hepatocytes, okay, ruptures and release merozoites. They migrates into the bloodstream and start to infect red blood cells. So the merozoites migrates into the bloodstream and infect RBC. So in the RBC, merozoites develops into a ring form, starting metabolizing the hemoglobin. That's why it's called a signet ring stage. So some of the merozoites develops into gametocytes. Okay, then they are transformed into tropozoites, schizont stage. Again, they'll infect red blood cells. The parasites divides asexually within the RBC to form schizon, periodically breaking out of their host that releases a toxic substance called hemozoins. So as a result of this, okay, malarial symptoms appears and invades fresh RBCs. Look at here. Some of the merozoites develops into gametocytes. When female Anopheles mosquito bites infected person, the gametocytes enters into the stomach of female Anopheles mosquito. In the gut of mosquito, gametocytes fuses to form zygote or ooconite. Okay, the ooconite develops into oocyst, and oocyst divide mitotically and produce a large number of sporozoites. They escape from the intestine of female Anopheles mosquito and enters into the salivary glands. When such mosquito bites healthy person, the cycle is repeated. Okay, so symptoms: sudden coldness, chilling and shivering, high fever, faster respiration, faster heart rate, sweating, muscle ache, loss of appetite, headache, vomiting. So anemia. Sometimes it may leads to renal failure. Okay. So Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ola infections are called territarian malaria, whereas Plasmodium malaria infection is called cotton malaria, whereas Falciparum infection is called cotidian malaria. So based on the incubation period. Okay, prevention. So preventing mosquito bites by mosquito nets, mosquito repellents, wire gauges of doors and windows, and filling small sized ditches with the soil, killing the mosquito larvae, the release of gambusia fish. Okay, so this completes the life cycle of malarial parasites. In the next session, we'll discuss helminthic diseases and fungal diseases. Thank you.